PowerPoint up. So I will do that. Let me drop myself out. All right. Whenever you are ready, go for it. You got a big audience here. Got a big group of coaches in your room.
Okay. We're now going to the principle number 2, the elm tree of mastery. And in the elm tree of mastery, we focus on peak performance versus winning. And it's based on 20 years of sports psychology research. Let's go to the next slide here. Okay. The elm tree of mastery. There's 2 different definitions. There's a scoreboard definition and there's the mastery definition. In the scoreboard definition, the first one is results. Results. Did you win the game? Did you make a good play? So, basically comes down, did you win? Whereas the mastery definition is about effort. Did you give the maximum effort? Did you work to get in position? In my case in hockey, did you back check hard? Did you get on pucks? In basketball, did you get open for that 3-point shot? In the scoreboard definition, we have comparison with others. How do I compare to this person? Am I better than them? Am I a better athlete than them? And I see that with kids all the time. When we have like races, they're looking at the other skater instead of going as hard as they can. And then in the mastery definition, it's about learning. It's about becoming better, that you can get better, that you can work at it. And the harder you work, the more successful you can be. And that's also the fun part for coaches, because we can teach. We can be not just there to make them win and play the best athletes, but also help them get better. And then in the scoreboard definition, mistakes aren't okay. Hey, you missed that block. You didn't block out. They got a rebound. They won the game. We didn't shoot enough. We didn't shoot it. Our percentage wasn't good enough. And in the mastery definition, mistakes are okay. You want to play without fear. You want to be that guy like yesterday, Malik Newman, who wanted to take the shots at the end of the game for Kansas against Duke, who wanted to get fouled so that he could go to the foul line. He wasn't afraid. He had worked hard, and now he was going to get his chance. Okay. Now, when athletes perform, what do they fear the most? When they're in the game, Kelly, what do you think an athlete is scared of the most?
Making a mistake.
Okay. Anybody else?
Looking bad in front of their friends and family.
Okay. And why is that?
Because it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing. What else?
It's the fear of failure.
Okay, fear of failure. What about when they look over to the sideline and see their coach? What are they afraid of? Is there any fear there?
They're going to get taken out of the game.
And taken out of the game, or what else could be happening?
They could get yelled at.
Yeah. Do kids like getting yelled at? No. So in a lot of cases, is why take that shot? Because if I miss it, I'll get yelled at. If I pass it to somebody else, I put all the emphasis on them, and I've done my job, and I've gotten rid of the ball, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, we at PCA believe that, yes, you have to correct mistakes, but you don't punish them for that. You don't make them feel like they're losers, that they're going to get yanked out of the game every time they make a mistake, because that's going to hurt their performance. You want them to be fearless at all times. Now, we have the elm tree of as we're talking about the elm tree of mastery, we conclude that peak performance is when players aren't scared, that they are willing to take that shot, that they are willing to catch the ball. They are willing to get open so that they can get the ball. I've seen kids who do everything they can not to get open so that they don't have to get the puck or they don't have to get the ball. Then they can't make a mistake. And is that going to help their performance or your team actually being successful? What do you think about that, Kelly?
No, not at all. They're timid. They're not going to be aggressive that way.
Yeah, and not only do we, it's really easy to say we think this is correct. But the really neat thing about it is that it's based on 25 years of research, including work done by Robert Rosen from Stanford University. This isn't one of those things that we just think or it should be. I remember I used to argue with my sister. She used to always say, well, I think it should be. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what you think. And we need that backed up with research on here. And that's the really neat thing about this. It's not just guessing anymore. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Now, the elm tree of mastery. Mastery gives a feeling of control to the player, that they feel that if they work harder, they can get better. If they learn correctly and they study the game, that they work on getting better by learning new concepts from their coach, that they can get better. That they're not just stuck in, oh, I'm not as talented as this one. I'm not 6'6", so how am I going to get a rebound against that big guy? How many times in this NCAA tournament have I seen a guy who's 6'2" out-rebound a guy who's 6'10"? He's got himself in great position. He worked hard to get there. He studied how to box somebody out, and he was effective. Now, again, if they feel that they have control over this, they'll work harder. And what's one of the reasons they'll work harder? Anybody? You have any idea why they think they would want to work harder if they're in control?
They're more confident.
Yeah. And the neat thing about it is if they feel that they can have control of it, they stick to it longer, which in turn will make them better. And as we talked about earlier, it'll make them want to come back, which is a successful statistic for a coach. And that's a big part of it. They control it. It's not just the coach. It's not just playing time. It's just not their natural ability. Okay. Now, we're going to look at a scenario. I want you to pair up in groups of two. And I'm going to give you a scenario situation. And I want some, what you think, how we can make make this better. Okay. Your team plays tentatively and lets the opponent drive the action. What can you do about that? I know it's frustrating. I'm sure you've been there too. There's a team, your guys are just backing away all the time. They never go after the ball. They never go after the loose puck. It's like they got on the rink and figured they were going to lose already. How can you change that? Scott?
I would say, I try to, in a situation like that, I try to create situations in practice where we can replicate the game, so that when they get to the game time, they're more comfortable and they're ready to play. And it's not the anxiety of putting on a game jersey or something like that. So to really try to replicate game situations in practice.
Yeah. So they feel like they've been there, done that before. Mm-hmm. But how else can we help them with this?
I think, the one thing I've done before with my young lacrosse team is just refocus them. So if we're down by a few goals and they're not being aggressive and they're thinking, we're losing, I reshift to think, what? I just want you guys to get 3 passes in a row. This is just a game of keep away. Don't worry about shooting right now. Don't worry about the other goalie. Don't worry about the other team. I just want you to pass it around. And if you get a chance to make a shot and take a shot, go for it. But if not, I just want you to work on possession and refocus them from the goal all the time.
Yeah, so now you've created a new goal for them that they can be successful at. As hockey coaches, we have this dumb saying that the 2-goal lead is the worst lead in hockey. So that's what you always tell your team when you're behind. Unless you're ahead, you tell them that's not true for us. But, it's the idea is that, hey, it doesn't matter. If we keep doing the right things, if we keep getting at the puck first, if we get shots on goal, we're going to be successful. Okay, now, one of the things that I heard from you, Kelly, especially, was that you were focusing on effort and doing things correctly in practice. Okay. And then also, from the way Scott would be doing practice, I'm sure he's sitting there getting on the players to perform at a high level, that they're being assertive and they're being aggressive. And the one thing I didn't really hear that I'd like to hear from the coaches is that you're telling them, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid if you make that play and it gets intercepted. Don't be afraid if you make that shot. You take that shot and it doesn't go in. Next time, take it again. Because if they're fearless, will they play more aggressively?
Yeah.
Yeah. And and if they see that, and who's really to be the one that's going to water and grow this feeling in them? Does it come just from them?
From the coaches.
Yeah, and that's your opportunity to do that. And there's lots of ways that we can help them be fearless. And one is to become a noticer. And we talked about that earlier in the lecture, that we want to find a kid and find what he's doing right. You want to find that, hey, they hustled. Now, like in hockey, what happens a lot of times is when we enter the zone, we want one guy driving the net hard, one guy taking the puck wide, and another player coming up in the middle of the ice behind them. And if that person doesn't drive the net, it all falls apart. So I try to find a kid that did that each time. Hey, you drove the net hard. That's what I want you to do. Do it every time. I know you didn't get the puck, but that's going to be a great opportunity for our team. Oh, I saw the way you back checked on that. You know, you didn't catch them, but you chased them so hard that they weren't able to score because they were more concerned about you than they were about trying to score. I mean, just little things like that. And the neat thing I find as a coach is I find that sometimes if I really work hard at doing that, that a kid that I didn't think was being very productive or wasn't one of my better players, well, you know what? They were doing a lot to make our team successful. You know, and it makes you feel, you know, and it helps the kids too. Now, also, one of the neat things to do is to reward effort, especially unsuccessful effort. And if you go into your book on page 27, you know, you'll see that. I would normally tell them to go read it, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I don't know if you guys got the book in front of you. So, oh, you got it. Okay. So, and I find that that's really, really important. I've had it like just the example I used. You back checked really hard. You didn't catch them, but it forced them to make a mistake. Hey, you took the puck wide. It opened up the ice. We didn't get the pass across. So what? Hey, you went up for that 3-pointer. You moved to the right a little bit off the dribble. It didn't go in, but just keep doing it. That's what's going to make our team successful. That's how we're going to score more points. And then the last one, and it's something that I just kind of came about when I went to my first PCA lecture, was the mistake ritual. You know, because when a kid looks over at a coach, what are they often, when they make a mistake, what unfortunately very often happens?
The coach looks disappointed in them.
Yeah. And sometimes they can even be giving them a verbal thing that says it's good, but then what could be contradicting that?
Body language.
Yeah. You're sitting there going, yeah. And you kind of look down right afterwards. You know, so they want to know that that you're okay with it. And a mistake ritual can be something as simple as sitting there going like this, which means you're flushing the toilet. The mistake's gone down the toilet. I had one kid where I had this one kid this year who would lose his temper a lot in the beginning of the year. So he'd look over me and I just kind of go like that. Just brush it off. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the kid hit you. Yeah, the kid put the stick on you. Oh, yeah, it might not have been what you think is the right call from the official. And he'd start to lose it. Then he'd look over me and be just like, and he'd kind of go back and shake his head. And this was a 9-year-old. So if a 9-year-old can do it, a 10, 15, 20-year-old can do it. Doesn't matter what level of player they are. So what we want to do is, like I said, we want to notice them, notice what they're doing right, reward effort, and then also have a mistake ritual so that they know it's okay. It's all right. You made a mistake. We're going on from it. Okay. Now here's a nice video on a mistake ritual that was done by PCA advisor board member and New York Mets player Curtis Granderson, explaining what his mistake ritual was and how he used it to be able to go on and not focus in the past, but go on into the future. Okay, obviously you don't want me to play that. And then I would just give the transition is now that we've gone through the improving the elm tree of mastery. I mean, actually before I'd actually go into that, I would just say one more time that this as coaches is an important part for you. We're talking about the elm tree of mastery. To get the roots to grow, they need you to water it. You need you to fertilize it, you to make the players strong, and all that comes from you and what you can do for the player. And then I'd go into the, we're going on to the honoring the game section.
All right. Thanks, Jim. That was quick.
Yeah, faster than normal.
Yeah, why do you think? I mean, this usually takes a lot of people a lot longer than that. Why do you think it was so quick?
I think part of it is I would have stretched out maybe a few more questions and stuff, like especially on the scenario part.
Mm-hmm.
We would have gone on longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was trying not to over ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been so long and long-winded on certain things before.
Yeah.
That and I feel in some ways you kind of touch on some of the stuff earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just reinforcing what's going on with this one.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't going to stop you once you got started on a roll, but there's actually 2 slides that come before this principle that are a great transition into this principle. The Carol Dweck video is the first one that talks about praising effort over talent. And then the second one is how do athletes believe they can get better? So that's another part that would be included in this principle as well that, would have taken some time. Okay. Fantastic.
Can I jump in? Can I ask you you made a great comment right there. You mentioned over asking questions. Describe what you meant by that, and tell me what that meant for you.
I think last time I'd get bogged down and I better ask them. I better get their input, which is important, but then that can go on forever and ever. And it's been stressed in the last few that really we only have them for a short period of time, as opposed to when I do a USA hockey clinic and I got those guys there for 6 hours. And yeah.
8 in Illinois.
Yeah.
You're going to come up here and you'd feel great.
Yeah. And so that's one of the, we can get, we've been asking questions through the thing. It also can be that depending on the size of the group, having the same person answering all the time, or people,
right. Great point.
And that becomes, because I find even when I do the USA hockey ones, we've really tried hard to make them much more interactive.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some people who you can tell just really don't want to talk, and you have to try to get them involved more. And we found that, like in our case, was when I pair them up, they'll become real talkative, but they'll have somebody else do the talking for them as the group leader. That kind of stuff.
So the thing that I really liked what you did, and it actually is related to what I think is a wish for you as well. I liked that in a couple of questions you redirected the question. And I also liked that you asked an individual participant. I do a lot of work with teachers and cognition, and asking an individual participant rather than asking for raised hands is a really effective way of engaging their cognition, and I really applaud you for doing that. The one thing I would consider, and this is also related to questioning, is finding ways of questioning or types of questions that really you don't have an answer to. You don't have an expected or a desired answer to. And sometimes that can be as simple as, wow, tell me more about that. So I understand what you say about timing. We could have a long discussion about timing, and I probably feel differently about it than others in some cases, or the same in some, but it is hard, I think, when you're starting out to give some of that time and actually some of that control really to the participants. But one thing I'd ask you to do is look for those questions that really engage their minds and have them synthesize 2 things. How has that worked for you in the season? Or can you tell me a time it worked and a time it didn't? Mm-hmm. And that way they're real questions then. I don't want to say the other ones are bad, but asking, hey, what other people are doing this is sort of there really is a right answer. And you can blend them. It's not all one or all the other, but it's just it's a completely different style of being more Socratic than.
Well, I agree with you on that, because like when I do the USA hockey ones, I tend to delve in more. And I think part of that comes from when I'm looking at somebody, I can see that there's what I can draw out of them or what they can't draw out of them, or that they have more to say, or different things they've said earlier in the clinics I run. And it does, because then they have to think more themselves and actually give, and what's neat about that is it's not just they have to think more, they actually give us more information that we all can learn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, at the risk of monopolizing, then I'll be done, I promise. You made a great comment, I think, about, some people tend to be the ones who answer out loud and others don't. And that's a fairly common theme. And just as a comment on that, that's where and Kelly is absolutely the master of this by far, but that's where the power of their individual conversations with each other really holds its own, because the people who won't talk in the group will talk in pairs, they'll talk in tables. And so they really do get a chance to express themselves, but they're understandably not comfortable doing that in front of a large group. Just a comment. You probably know that, but helpful perspective.
And what I even mentioned, like when I do the USA Hockey clinics, is we'll do a section where you get like 6 guys together and they do a practice plan. And after it's all over, I even mentioned, well, this is interesting, guys, because this is like a team. You see somebody who wants to be the captain, some guys who are the grunt guys, some of the guys who are, they each have a role, and even use that as a learning tool, as the dynamic, the group dynamic, and how that, and that's your team, and you have to work with that group dynamic. And
I love that answer, but again, and I'm being a pain in the butt here, I know, but I would even consider shifting that to say, what roles did you plan you guys work like a team? What roles, how would you define the roles you played? Rather than describing their roles for them from what you saw. Just another way of sort of involving their minds in building answers rather than recalling answers. Sorry, Sequels, you look like you're sitting back there and like scratching your chin at me. Sequels and I are arch enemies. I'm sorry, it's just a thing.
All right, nemesis. Scott, I'd love to hear some of your comments for Jim. This is the second time you've seen him now. So what did you like about what he did? And then maybe do you have a wish for something he could improve upon?
I appreciated the pacing. I really, really appreciated his effort and being cognizant of kind of taking our feedback from before. I thought his example on being a noticer of effort was great. He really took it right onto the rink. I think the challenge there will be to flip that into knowing who your audience is and come up with a relevant or similar baseball or basketball or soccer reference to do that. I also love that you threw in a quick book reference on page 27, and you didn't even do it on the mistake ritual. I tend to go right there, page 23, mistake ritual. So I really appreciated that. I did hear you use the word lecture twice, and to me, lecture brings up nightmares of college. We pride ourselves in calling these things workshops. I think in the notes that, I make that comment at the outset of every one. This is a workshop, not a lecture. I expect you all to. And you set the groundwork for doing that. One other thing.
Actually, one thing on that, Scott, and another hockey guy in Minnesota, he had a great comment to me. He said, I don't want them thinking of this as a workshop. This should be a play shop. And I like that mentality. A gentleman named Hal Turse, if you know Hal.
Well, I think that's a great outlook.
When you made me think of it.
And I thought one thing, just as and it would have helped me to be able to look at the slides, but as you got started in the elm tree and that slide comes up with the 2 different definitions of winning, they're not. So I try to make that very clear, because we're not defining the elm tree. We're coming up with a new definition of winning. And the age-old adage or the win-at-all-cost piece is the scoreboard definition. And here's the things. And we're trying to develop this mastery focus, and here are effort, learning, mistakes are okay. So, that just was a little gray for me. I thought that could have been cleaned up. And then I didn't hear you talk about the one slide where you click into and, self-confidence goes up, anxiety goes down. I didn't hear you talk about conversely that they're less anxious. You kind of stayed on the positive piece, but otherwise I really thought it was great. Mental note to all of us: we still need to update Curtis Granderson's video footer, because he doesn't play for the Mets anymore. He plays for the Blue Jays for Toronto.
Yeah, I thought that too. Thanks, Scott.
It's tough. It's tough to chase it down.
Kelly had a great story. She was doing a tick in New York with us a couple of weeks ago, and she had a kid that it was a little girl, Kelly, who said, he doesn't play for the Mets anymore.
Oh, she was so upset.
Kelly,
what happened to him? I was like, I'm sorry to crush your dreams here.
I know. Kelly's dashing dreams. The kid she doesn't even coach.
No, but I really appreciate the effort. I'm trying to figure out where you were looking. That's the challenge to me, knowing that you've got multiple screens there. It's confusing. I look over my left shoulder, like, what's back there? Looking over. So great job, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Ruben?
Yeah, pretty much all my observations have been mentioned. And you know, I want to be careful that we don't overwhelm Jim with the feedback. I definitely noticed, you know, when I attended my first PCA lecture, okay, I definitely noticed that. You know, I think the pacing, you know, like Scott, I appreciate the giving attention to keeping things moving. I think that when you get in front of a live group of workshop participants, that the time will naturally expand, you know, and then also the couple slides that Kelly mentioned. So I'm not concerned about, you know, that, wow, this was short, you went too fast. Not at all. And I don't think anybody was saying that. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention, Kelly, is, you know, as a trainer, I'm not concerned whether everybody speaks up in front of the group or not. You know, in fact, I just don't think that's a productive, realistic goal to get everybody to speak up in front of the group.
Right.
And quite honestly, if I have some folks who don't even want to pair up, you know, I'm not going to let that distract me. What we're going for is an overall energy, vibe, feel in the workshop. And that's, you know, if you got most people engaged, you know, and one person, you know, during the pair share needs to be on their phone for whatever, who knows what's going on, you know, they could have an emergency. So anyway, that's it, Kelly.
Okay, thanks. Jim, I really appreciate it. I saw a lot of improvement from the first time that you went. I think you were much more comfortable with the material. And that's one of the things that makes us go quickly also, is when you're so comfortable with the material and you can keep going. In a live workshop, you're going to have the slides, you know, behind you, and you're going to know them so well that you're not going to have to keep turning around to see what's going on. You'll have a laptop probably in front of you like you're used to from USA Hockey. So I think I'm really excited. I think you're getting better and better and more comfortable with the content all the time. I really like the way that you focus on, you know, what do athletes fear the most? And I think that's a big question. And that's one of the biggest questions that we need to know. Like, what do they fear? But what does that fear do to their performance? Almost linking that to what does that fear do to their performance? And that was something that, you know, I heard you say it a couple times, but I don't know if you connected it to what we as coaches do to instill that fear in our athletes. And I think that's where the work part of the workshop comes in. You were giving us a lot of great examples, and I asked, you know, I always put down when I think, like, if I'm going through this workshop while you're doing it, at what points do I tell the coaches what they should be doing and give them examples? And at what points do I ask them, what are you doing? Kind of what Joe said. So the art of questioning, I agree with what Joe was talking about. It's not just, how would you do this? Or what's the answer to my question? Or what do you think is going to happen to anxiety? Or, you know, those are all questions. But to actually get these coaches to work, they need to think about, how would you do this? This shooting drill that you run all the time in practice, how would you keep the athletes accountable for effort this time, not just outcome? How would you as a coach reward the effort? What does effort look like in your sport, on your field, in your court? And those are the questions that get the coaches to actually be challenged and work and think to themselves, wait a minute, now when I go out to practice tomorrow, I'm going to rethink how I, you know, reward these kids. Because most of it's like, hey, if you get it in the net, good job, we clap for you. Next one up. You got it in the net, good job. Woo. You know, we're not even looking at what are the angle they're taking the shot. How are they beating the defender? These are the things that the effort mastery focus will help them actually perform better. Are they boxing out? Are they hustling back on defense? So I would just look for opportunities to really challenge us to work and think about how we're going to do it. I always use the phrase I learned at a seminar one time that said, you can't learn to ride a bike at a seminar. You can't learn to coach at a seminar either. And you can't learn to coach at a lecture. These coaches have to hear the words, think of an athlete, think of a drill, think of a skill, and refocus it on mastery. And so put us to work, not only in pairs to share, but in maybe groups of 4 by sport, and come up with a drill you do all the time. And now change the focus to effort and see what happens. And, you know, Joe's actually heard, a couple people have heard too. I actually have the coaches get up and pretend to be giving a halftime speech. One of you is focused on win at all costs and scoreboard. One of you is focused on mastery. Let's hear your 30-second impromptu halftime speech to your team. It's a really powerful activity because all of a sudden the coaches in the room hear themselves. They hear themselves being screamed at by the scoreboard focused coach about, I can't believe we're losing. You missed that shot. What were you thinking? You guys are better than this. I can't believe you made that mistake. You know, and the coach's anxiety is going up. And then they hear the other person off the cuff, just top of their head, you know, you're focusing on mastery. And they start getting these team players motivated by what they've learned. And man, your effort's been great. You're backing each other up. All we've got to do is capitalize on the teamwork and, you know, things like that. And their anxiety level goes down. And then you just ask the coaches, who would you rather play for? Which coach would motivate you more? So just an idea. That's probably one of the biggest things that I wrote down, in addition to what other people said as well, is just ask rather than tell, but ask thought-provoking, working, get the coaches to work a little bit. I also like the way you hit the research. This isn't just what I think. This is the research that, and the best practices of coaches that have seen the better performance in their athletes. I really hit the performance area with this as well. I think, you know, what Joe said about calling people, I think I agree. If I'm called on in a workshop, like, hey, Kelly, or what do you think? Or I think that's good at some point if you're confident with the person. I think I'm always careful not to do that because I don't know if I don't want to just call on somebody in the group and say, hey, what do you think? If the person is just not ready, I don't want to embarrass them. So I call that cold calling. I try to stay away from that a little bit more, but it definitely would make my cognition improve because I'd be like, whoa, he called on me.
Yeah, and that's actually it's not always appropriate to agree with Kelly 100%. The pedagogy of teachers is when you, and you didn't do this, you did a great job not doing this. If you ask for raised hands, you turn off brains. So somebody can just decide not to even acknowledge the question cognitively if they know they have to raise their hand to answer it. So yeah, I'm with Kelly all the way on that, but you got to be really careful and judicious about how to do that. So I probably didn't express that really clearly.
Oh, that's okay. We're clear. Thanks, Joe. And the last part, the only other last comment that I just think is important just for the overall explanation, you talked about the mistake ritual and how like it's something even a 9-year-old can do, which I think there's value to about the brushing off. But I think the cool thing about a mistake ritual, to me, a mistake ritual seems pretty juvenile. It seems like something that would be really good for little kids and youth to do. And I think the power of the mistake ritual is that it's used at the highest levels because everyone, after you make a mistake, we need something physical to trigger a mental reset. So we're ready to go on to the next play. So I think your point that it's simple enough that a 9-year-old can do it, but powerful enough that even the highest level, even in the major leagues in baseball, use it. And I'm going to let you hear from Curtis Granderson. You know, something like that to say that it is a super high level tool, but is really simple for 9-year-olds to do as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like the word powerful in there too. That makes it even more powerful.
Yeah.
And say that, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, the next step for you is to do the final. So I'd love to see you pick another chunk.
3 so far. How many am I supposed to do?
Oh, that was your third one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had that was your second one. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, you could do 5 more if you want to. No, honestly. What we'll do then, Jim, is we'll discuss as a team and we'll figure out what the next step is and, you know, how to get you out to a live workshop and whether that would mean you know, something with Scott or another trainer in the area and how much of that workshop that we can hook you up to do. Because I'd love to see you in front of live people. I think you'll definitely come more alive in front of live people, which is a great thing. You're on mute, Ruben.
Yeah. Hey, Jim and Kelly, as far as the demos that Jim's done, I have 2 down myself. I have one on February 22nd. I have that down as Jim's first demo.
I did the first opening section one first, and that was like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I have that down as February 22nd, and then I have this one today, and there may have been one in between that I missed. I just wanted to check.
Yeah, I
confirm
did
that.
On the E-Tank.
Yeah, he did on the 9th. March 9th, he did the second one. That was my fault.
Okay. And I don't think I was on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
No. Thank you. Sorry about that, Jim. Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, I can tell that you're ready. I don't have any qualms about having you go out at a live workshop. We'll just talk about how much of that workshop we'd like you to do and when we can get you out there.
Sounds good.
All right, Jim, Scott, did you have any comments on that, considering your locality there?
No, I think that's great. I think the catch was the last 2 have both been called course demo number 2.
Yeah, that's probably my fault.
No, I think that's great. I'll try to look for a DGC1 workshop that we've got coming up here, and we can strategize next steps.
Okay. I'll actually, Jim, so once every other week, I'll send you the next workshops for the next month that are coming up. And the Double Goal Coach 1 are the workshops that you're trained for to go out. I usually send a list of all of them in case you just want to go observe if it works out for timing wise. Thanks, Ruben. But you'll get on that list, so you'll see which workshops are coming up, and I'll work with Scott to figure out which one would be the best fit for you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thanks for all your efforts, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Thanks for joining me, guys.